The first thing I remember after the plane hit the mountain was the sound of metal tearing apart and the terrifying realization that my boss was lying only a few feet away, both of us surrounded by smoke, broken seats, and a silence that felt impossible. For days later, when we finally returned to civilization, I thought surviving the crash was the hardest thing I would ever face. I was wrong. The hardest part was discovering that her company would pay me to erase those 4 days from the world. If you believe in kindness, forgiveness, hope, and second chances, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to our channel because stories like this remind us that even in our darkest moments, humanity can still shine. My name is Callum Reeves, and before the accident, I was just another employee trying to prove myself in a company where I often felt invisible. I worked as a project coordinator at a global environmental technology firm called Northbridge Innovations. I had spent years building a reputation as someone reliable, but I always felt like I was standing in the shadow of the company's powerful CEO, Vivian Hartwell. Vivian was known throughout the business world as brilliant, disciplined, and nearly impossible to impress. She had transformed a small research company into an international organization, but many employees saw only her success and not the sacrifices behind it. People whispered that she cared more about numbers than people. They believed she had forgotten what it meant to struggle because she had become too focused on winning. I was one of those people who judged her from a distance. I had never spoken to her for more than a few minutes at a time. To me, she was the person who approved budgets, made difficult decisions, and walked through the office surrounded by assistants. I never imagined that a few hours in a small aircraft would completely change the way I saw her forever. The trip was supposed to be simple. Vivian and I were traveling to inspect a renewable energy project in a remote region where the company planned to build a new facility. I was chosen because I knew the details of the project better than anyone else, and Vivian wanted a direct understanding of the progress before making a major investment decision. The morning of the flight was bright and clear. The sky stretched endlessly above us, and the sunlight reflected across the aircraft windows as we prepared for what should have been a routine journey. Nothing about that day suggested that our lives were about to be divided into 2 parts, before the crash and after it. The accident happened suddenly. A mechanical failure caused the aircraft to lose control while crossing a difficult section of terrain. Within moments, everything changed. The confidence of the passengers disappeared, replaced by fear and confusion. The impact came faster than anyone could process. When I opened my eyes, the world looked unfamiliar. The aircraft had broken apart, and the peaceful morning had become a scene of destruction. I was injured, confused, and struggling to understand how I was still alive. Around me were signs of disaster, but there were also signs of survival. Vivian was alive. That was the moment I realized that whatever differences existed between us before no longer mattered. She was not my boss. She was not a powerful executive. She was simply another human being trying to survive. The next 4 days changed everything. With limited supplies and no immediate rescue, we had to depend on each other. The same woman I once believed was cold and distant became the person who kept me focused when my injuries became painful. She showed patience, courage, and compassion that I had never seen in the office. I discovered that behind her professional image was someone carrying years of personal pain. Vivian had built her company after losing everything earlier in her life. She had spent years proving herself because she believed failure meant becoming forgotten. Her determination had protected her, but it had also created walls around her heart. During those days, away from schedules, meetings, and corporate expectations, those walls began to disappear. I also faced my own weaknesses. I realized that I had been unfair to her. I had judged her based on rumors and appearances without ever trying to understand the person behind the title. The crash forced both of us to see each other differently. We worked together to find shelter, protect our limited resources, and stay hopeful. Every sunrise brought another challenge, but it also brought another reason to keep going. The days were long, filled with uncertainty, but they were also filled with moments of unexpected kindness. Vivian, the woman everyone described as emotionless, became the person who reminded me that giving up was not an option. I became someone who helped her remember that she did not have to carry every burden alone. When rescue finally arrived on the fourth day, I expected to feel only relief. Instead, I felt a strange sadness because those 4 days had revealed a truth that the outside world could never understand. We had shared fear, pain, and hope in a way that created a connection stronger than any workplace relationship. But when we returned home, reality came rushing back. The company's lawyers contacted me almost immediately. They thanked me for my role in helping Vivian survive and offered me a large financial payment. At first, I thought it was a reward for my efforts. Then I learned the real reason behind it. They wanted my silence. The company feared that the story of the crash would damage its reputation. They worried investors would panic, competitors would use the incident against them, and the public would question Vivian's leadership. They offered me money to sign an agreement promising that I would never reveal what happened during those 4 days. At first, I felt betrayed. The experience that changed my life was being treated like a problem that needed to be hidden. The company was trying to control a story that belonged to both of us. They saw a crisis. I saw a human experience. I struggled with the decision because I needed the money. My apartment was small, my savings were limited, and I had spent years trying to build a stable life. The payment could have solved many problems. But every time I thought about accepting it, I remembered those 4 days. I remembered the courage I saw in Vivian. I remembered how 2 strangers from completely different worlds had survived because they trusted each other. I eventually learned that Vivian had not requested the agreement. In fact, she had been fighting against the decision from inside the company. She believed hiding the truth was wrong, but she was surrounded by executives who cared more about protecting the company's image than honoring the people involved. That discovery changed everything. For the first time, I saw Vivian fighting a battle not for profit or success, but for honesty. She had spent years building a company, but now she was trying to rebuild something more important: trust. Instead of taking the payment and disappearing, I chose to stand beside her. Together, we pushed for a different approach. We shared the truth in a responsible way, focusing not on drama or blame but on the importance of safety, accountability, and the people who survived. The reaction was not what the company expected. Many people respected the honesty. Employees who had always viewed Vivian as distant began seeing her differently. They learned about the person behind the title. They saw someone who had made mistakes, faced fear, and chosen to become better. The experience also changed my own life. I was no longer the employee who stayed quiet in the background. I became someone who understood the value of speaking with courage and treating people with compassion. Months later, Vivian made a decision that surprised everyone. She created a new program within the company focused on employee well-being, emergency preparedness, and mental support. She admitted that success was not only measured by financial achievements but by how people were treated along the way. Our relationship also changed. We were no longer just a boss and an employee. We became 2 people who understood each other because we had faced something unforgettable together. I learned that people are often more complicated than the stories we tell about them. The person we think is heartless may be someone carrying invisible pain. The person we think has everything may secretly be searching for understanding. Sometimes the hardest moments in life reveal the most beautiful parts of humanity. Years later, I still think about those 4 days. Not because they were frightening, but because they showed me what really matters. Money, titles, and success can disappear in a single moment. What remains is kindness, trust, courage, and the people who stand beside us when everything falls apart. Before this story ends, I want to ask you something. Have you ever judged someone before truly knowing their story? Leave a meaningful comment and share what lesson this journey taught you about forgiveness, understanding, or second chances. If this story touched your heart, please like this video, leave a meaningful comment, share it with someone who needs hope today, and subscribe to our channel so you never miss another emotional journey. Because sometimes the people we least expect can become the ones who remind us that even after the biggest disasters, a new beginning is always possible.